You're listening to the Health and Happiness Podcast with Travis Kemper and
Lauren Maxwell. Each episode, we share easy-to-implement strategies to improve your health, happiness, and overall quality of life. Visualize what you want to do before you do it. Visualization is so powerful that when you know what you want, you will get it. Audrey Flack. How's it going, Trav?
Good. I had a big week. I gave notice to my job on Wednesday.
Woohoo!
Yeah, it was time to move on for a variety of reasons. And then I accepted a new position yesterday. So I'm excited about that.
Well, congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you. I'm going to, it sounds like I'll probably be working with more of the neuro patients in this clinic, as well as some peds. So you might get some questions.
Oh my gosh, I'd be so happy to help. Oh, that's so exciting. What a great population of people to work with.
Yeah. How's it going?
So it's been a pretty normal week for me, which actually is a really good thing. I feel like the last month has been a little too eventful with a bunch of unexpected things happening all the time. So it was nice to have a normal, albeit busy week. I was supposed to go down to Phoenix this weekend to see my mom, my stepdad, stepbrother, and my little 2-year-old niece. But my mom actually ended up breaking her shoulder. So we've all decided, we decided to postpone for a couple of weeks to let her heal a little bit before we just bombard her with a bunch of people. Yeah, my poor mom. Travis's birthday is in 3 days. And so is my 4-year anniversary. So fun fact for anyone who didn't know, Nolan and I got married on Trav's 30th birthday and made him a surprise groomsman at our wedding.
And now you just told everybody how old I am?
They have to do math to figure that
out. Very tough math.
So what are we going to talk about today, Travis?
A couple of weeks ago, we mentioned visualization in one of the episodes. Don't ask me which episode. I don't know.
I
was listening to the
either.
episode again, and we said we should do an episode on visualization. And I thought, oh, we should do an episode on visualization.
So here we are.
That's what we're going to talk about today. So Lauren, what is visualization?
Visualization is something a lot of athletes use. Probably what people are most familiar with is athletes using it. That includes vivid, highly detailed imagery and run-throughs of an entire performance. It includes like engaging all of your senses in mental rehearsal and combining knowledge of the sport or activity or task with your knowledge of like the place that you're in. So for athletes, that would be their sports venue.
Yeah, and it can also be used in a lot of other areas. It has a lot of benefits. I use it in my meditations.
Nice.
Basically visualizing successes in things that I want to accomplish.
Nice.
So mine's a little less detailed than I think is ideal for an athlete. But it seems to work. So research shows that the benefits of mental imagery are pretty vast. You can have performance improvement, which is obviously why the athletes do it. Faster times, better accuracy, fewer mistakes, overall more success in whatever they are trying to have more success at. Skill development. So when you're learning a new skill, visualization can help you improve at that skill. Preparation for a task, increased self-confidence. Lauren,
I feel like you're looking at me directly right now.
I think I am. So Lauren, just so you know, and I'm not saying this for any specific reason, but visualization can improve self-confidence.
Yeah, and I'm confident, says my board right here.
That's right. it can also improve motivation, and increased motivation, increased attentional control. So if you're having trouble paying attention to your tasks, lower your anxiety. This is a big one that I thought was a little bit surprising, but we'll go into that a little bit later. Higher self-efficacy, a greater feeling of control, decreased stress, better emotional management, better energy management, and increased relaxation. Holy cow, that's a lot of good stuff.
A lot of good stuff.
And just to be clear, there's probably many other benefits of it. It's not studied that well. So there's a lot more to be discovered for sure, but that's enough that we should probably pay attention. Lauren, have you ever used visualization in your life?
Yeah, actually, it's been a while, I guess, since I have used it, but I used to use it all the time back when I was in marching band. We were in competitions quite often, so I would use visualizations as a way to prepare for that. I would run through, because in marching band you have to go through like all of these various formations, like while you're drumming you have to take like certain lengths of steps. It's very specific and very planned out, and so visualization was a big huge tactic for me, because when we used to perform at the NAU Sky Dome, and that environment is very different than the one that we practiced in a lot. So you had to like prepare yourself for the echo and the reverberation coming back to you that you're not used to. So we used that a lot in band. And I also used it for dance, because I was in competition dance for a while when I was young, but I haven't used it really since then.
You feel that it helped?
Oh, totally. And you know what? It actually like really reduced my anxiety.
Nice.
And it made me like, yeah, it made me feel more confident. So I can back those two for sure. I don't know that I did like specific tests about whether or not I actually performed better. I just did it, you know what I mean? But it made me feel better, which honestly probably did make my performance better. So
yeah, if you decrease your anxiety before competition, I'm sure that you performed better.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of studies to talk about today, but we wanted to begin with some studies on visualization and the brain. So there was a study looking at brain patterns in weightlifters, and they found that the patterns activated when a weightlifter lifted hundreds of pounds were similarly activated when they only imagined lifting. So again, this is the power of your mind over like even just like a physical task. You're able to activate the same parts of your brain when you're just thinking about lifting hundreds of pounds. And brain studies are now showing that thoughts produce the same mental instructions as actions. So mental imagery impacts many cognitive processes in the brain: motor control, attention, perception, planning, and memory. So the brain is getting trained for the actual performance during the visualization. And it's been found that mental practices can enhance motivation. Again, this is a lot of what Travis was talking about: increase confidence and self-efficacy, improve motor performance, and prime your brain for success. And for athletes, it can increase states of flow.
So found some more studies that looked at the effectiveness of visualization on a motor task, on specific movement, and found that it's almost as effective as actually performing the task, which is pretty cool. So in a study, on a study on everyday people, an exercise psychologist from the Cleveland Clinic Foundation in Ohio compared results of those who did physical exercises to the results of those who carried out virtual workouts in their head. So they never performed the task.
Just thought about it.
Right. And the physical exercise group, finger abduction, which is basically spreading your fingers apart, strength increased by 53%. And in the group that did mental contractions, the finger abduction strength increased by 35%. In other words, you can strengthen your muscles with your brain.
That is so wild.
It is
Like,
wild.
I kind of, when I was reading through this study, I was kind of like, that's not going to work. Like, they're going to see an increase in the physical exercise group and then the mental contraction group or whatever they called it. They weren't going to see anything. But 35% is a pretty significant increase by just thinking about it. What the heck?
Yeah, and I guess to be clear, your muscle strength didn't actually increase. It was your effectiveness and efficiency at performing the task and
Right.
devoting your muscle strength directly to that spreading of the fingers
Yeah.
task. So
Pretty cool.
anyway, yeah, pretty cool. So if you, what I'm disappointed about in that study is that they didn't have a combined group where they said, hey, you're going to spend half your time doing and half your time visualizing, and let's see where you get. That way we could compare them to the physical practice group and say, hey, they did better or worse or the same as,
right,
without as much exercise needed.
Yeah. Yeah, that would have been a
I
really
explained that.
interesting. Yeah, I think you explained that really well, because the
Yeah.
combination of it is likely pretty powerful.
To be better.
Mhm.
Yeah, most likely I would say it's probably better.
Yeah, that's what I would guess.
Which is
too.
why athletes do it.
Right, exactly. We have another study here that looked at the role of mental imagery and how that can play in college students learning a new psychomotor skill. So participants were first introduced to an athletic taping skill, and actually the taping skill specifically was the elbow. I learned later as I kept reading, by viewing a 2-minute video of taping an elbow. After the video, they completed 5 minutes of physical practice with the skill, and then took an anxiety and confidence inventory and completed a pre-test of the skill during which they were timed and scored. So all of that, they were the same. And then they were randomly assigned to 2 groups. One group listened to a guided imagery audio. So this is the visualization part that guided them through the steps of the athletic taping skill. The second group viewed a PowerPoint presentation that listed the steps of the athletic taping skill. Then they took the anxiety and confidence inventory again and completed a post-test of the skill in which they were timed and scored. There were significant differences found for the cognitive anxiety levels between women and men. Women showed a much larger decrease in their cognitive anxiety than men by the end of the study. So that was the one statistically significant thing that came out of the study. They didn't find much other statistically significant differences that they were expecting to find based on previous literature. And they attributed that mostly due to the fact that their task of taping an elbow was maybe too easy, because the scores on both the pre-test and the post-test were pretty high. So there wasn't really a lot of room for improvement. They had basically a ceiling effect.
Yeah, but they did find that anxiety piece,
Yeah,
which is important, especially, if it, helps women more than men, that's fine. I think in that one, they said that there was a statistically different anxiety level between men and women in the pre-test, but then not in the post-test.
Yeah.
Which meant that the women decreased their anxiety more.
Yeah.
In the study.
Yeah. And overall, we've seen a lot of studies on imagery's effect on anxiety and confidence. So studies have suggested that the imagining of a successful completion of a skill allows the individual to believe that they are truly able to complete that task. It has been studied in multiple different types of people and multiple groups. It's been studied with its effects on policemen or women, college students, competitive roller skaters, and pilots. These are just some of the studies that I saw and the groups that they studied, all of which, competition they were studying, police in their active duty, college students in their testing, and pilots with that huge stress of flying and landing a plane. All of that showed that imagery decreased anxiety. So pretty powerful stuff for a wide variety of people.
Yeah. So another one looked at the effectiveness of motor imagery on children's motor training. So basically, they took 64 students from 9 to 10 years old. They were all fourth grade students. They participated in the study. They had 3 groups. So they had a modeling group, which was basically watching an expert on a video throw a ball. They had a physical practice group, which was just trained through throwing a ball at a target. And then they had an imagery group, and they were trained based solely on motor imagery. The task consisted of throwing a ball towards a target. Performance of subjects before and after training was assessed. The results showed improvements for all 3 groups. However, the motor imagery and modeling groups obtained significantly higher mean scores than the physical practice group. It's really cool.
That's really cool, and something that I could take into work. I mean, ball skills is a huge part of what kids need to be able to do in the school setting. Right. And this is a really cool, like, I didn't even think about trying it this way.
It's interesting. So watching somebody that's really, really good at throwing a ball at a target, maybe a baseball pitcher, they did not explain exactly what the video was, which I was kind of disappointed. But maybe a baseball pitcher, really, really good at throwing a ball at a target. Kids model for most of their behavior. They watch you do something and then they say, oh, monkey see, monkey do. And they found that was very effective, much more so than just telling the kid to throw the ball. And my guess is that's because if you've ever watched a little kid throw a ball, it does not look like a baseball pitcher.
It definitely doesn't.
No, it's not pretty most of the time, especially when they've never done it before. So I'm guessing there was some weird kind of shot putting of the ball rather than winding up and throwing. But when you watch the baseball pitcher do it, you can see how somebody really good does it. And then the other interesting thing is that the motor imagery worked though without seeing the expert pitcher.
Yeah, that is interesting, because I feel like you would need to know what it looked like before, like a that doesn't sound right. A good performance of that task. You would need to know what that looked like before you imagined it.
Yeah, so you just don't keep doing the terrible shot.
Right, exactly. Because kids are really, really good at watching a skill and trying to figure out what the body is doing. Like, it's actually really impressive. They try to figure out what the body is doing to be able to perform the skill. Like, a lot of times I've worked on like jumping with kids, and you get a group of kids together and you tell them to like jump off the bleacher, and the one cue that I give them is to land as quietly as you can. And like, it's a mess when they first start, but when they find somebody who lands quietly, they just watch them, and then they get better because they're watching somebody else who's figured out how to do it. It's so interesting how kids learn. I don't know if adults necessarily do it quite the same, but kids just do that so quickly, I guess, is what I've noticed.
I think the determination in adults is different a lot of times. Like, I'm just a bad lander.
I just can't do it. I just can't jump very well.
We give up much faster than a kid who will fall down 100 times and still learn to walk.
Yeah, their little brains are programmed for that. They have to be able to, otherwise they won't walk anyway. Yeah.
So related to this, studies have shown that in novice learners, like a kid learning to throw a ball, it has been shown that imagery is more effective for cognitive tasks rather than tasks that are purely physical. In other words, those learning new tasks that require a combination of cognitive functioning and physical movements like throwing a ball, riding a bike, etc., have been shown to increase their performance at a higher rate by using imagery than those learning a new skill that is only physical and does not require cognitive skills. I need to know what they didn't explain this. So I want to know what the only physical task that you're doing is that's not requiring cognitive skills.
Yeah, that's a good
because
point.
when you're learning something new,
Everything's cognitive.
everything requires cognitive skills. So they didn't really explain that. I find that a flaw in the study, but it's an interesting thought. But even like we were talking about the finger abduction, if you're watching the video, that is literally just spreading your fingers apart. You still have to kind of think to do it. It's still like I have
it's
to
still
tell
a
my
cognitive
body
process,
to do that.
right?
Yeah. So I don't know how they're distinguishing those two things. Anyway, so yeah, visualization can work to help your kid or you learn a new task better. Lauren, how do you start with visualization?
So we found an article that kind of walked us through the steps of how to start with visualization. So this is not by any means my own advice, because I don't know that I was doing it right when I was a young little kid. So this is from more educated minds. So begin by establishing a highly specific goal. Imagine the future that you have already achieved your goal. Hold a mental picture of it as if it were occurring to you right at that moment. Imagine the scene in as much detail as possible and engage any or as many of the 5 senses as you can in your visualization. This is something that I saw pop up a lot, is the more senses you engage, the more rich the visualization and the more effective it can be. So who are you with? Which emotions are you feeling? What are you wearing? Is there a smell on the air? What do you hear? What's your environment? So when I was doing this for like band performances, that's something I mentioned before, is like when we were competing at the NAU Sky Dome, there's a lot of reverberation that I wasn't used to because we practiced out on a field that had no reverberation, just outside. So that was part of the thing that I would visualize when I was working through that, is the sound of the reverberation and the confusion that it kind of created in my head, so that when I was actually in that moment, it didn't distract me. It recommends that you sit with a straight spine when you do this. I don't know what the research behind that really showed, but they suggest to sit with a straight spine. They said practicing
straight spine.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, just which is
sit with good posture.
It's not a thing.
No, it's not. Your spine is not straight.
Your spine is not straight. If it's straight, you're in trouble.
You're in trouble. Yeah, I would say maybe sit with good posture. I don't know, like sit comfortably, like when you're meditating. Yeah, upright, whatever. Practice at night or in the morning, just before or after sleep. Eliminate any doubts if they come to you. Repeat the practice often, and then you can combine this with meditation or an affirmation. Affirmations being things like, I am courageous, I am strong, or to borrow from Travis's favorite, Muhammad Ali, I am the greatest.
You did great on that.
Thanks. I was impressed. I visualized it before I did it.
Awesome. So challenge this week. I think that's a pretty simple one to do. Let's take something that you want to get better at and try and add visualization for 3 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever. It doesn't have to be long, into your practice for that task, and see if it improves your performance on that task or your confidence or your anxiety.
Yeah, because those are, for me, just as important.
Sorry to call you out, Lauren.
That's okay. I mean, that's what I'm here for. I have real things that I need to work on. I am a real human being.
I'm a real girl.
I'm a real girl.
Well, this is fun. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to listen to this episode of the Health and Happiness Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the episode and are getting benefits from our content.
If your life is improving in part due to the information in this podcast, we would greatly appreciate you sharing the episode with your family and friends on social media and leaving us a review so we can continue to reach more people and improve the health and happiness of the community at large.
Thanks again, and we will see you next week for another episode of the Health and Happiness Podcast.